Hi, everybody. It's Lauren McGoodwin, founder and CEO of Career Contessa. Welcome to our live webinar today. It's Wednesday, if anybody needed that reminder, March 25th. We are joined by Belma McCaffrey of Work Bigger. Hi, Belma.
Hi.
We are talking all about how to manage your career and your kind of career changes, especially your stress and your mental health during this time of coronavirus. I would say also the tips you're going to share, Belma, are things that people can really use during any time. It doesn't have to be during the coronavirus. So if you are new to a webinar, Career Contessa webinar, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I'm just going to go over some housekeeping items, and many of you guys already know kind of the drill, but over on my right, you guys have this live chat function. We love it when you guys let us know where you're joining us from. I saw some of you already sharing ways to connect with each other. This is definitely a community, so make sure that you are connecting. I'm in my home in Los Angeles. Belma, where are you joining us from?
I'm calling from Maine. I live right outside New York City, but came up to Maine because of everything that's going on.
Yes, so it looks very beautiful in the background, by the way. Yeah, Maine looks good. Another couple of housekeeping items. So the live chat, if you're joining us live versus watching the replay, which anybody who's here right now is live, that is really where the conversation moves pretty quickly. If you have a question, so what Belma and I are going to do is we're going to kind of go through this outline that we've created, and then we're going to get to your questions. So right underneath me, about right here, it says ask a question. Put your questions there, upvote the ones that you have that are similar, because we're only gonna have time to get to so many of them. So we really wanna vote the ones that are the most popular. And then what Belma and I can do is we can record our answers to your questions. That means that if you wanna come back and watch the replay later, you don't have to necessarily watch the entire webinar if you wanna just listen to our answer to your question. So that's a really cool tool. All of you will have access to this replay because you registered. Right now, we're making all the webinars on Career Contessa free. So if you haven't already, go to careercontessa.com and click on webinars and check out all of those. We're doing that as a service to help all of you right now. But also you will have, I'm going to email you, but also right after this webinar is done being aired live, you can watch it anytime. Also, I would really recommend that as Belma's talking today, if any of the tips are things that are things that you think would be helpful to other people, do us a favor, share it on social, share it in emails, share it anywhere. It's all good stuff to be helping people, and a lot of people are looking for the advice and the help that Belma is going to be talking about today. Okay, so I want to stop talking so Belma has plenty of time to, Belma, why don't you start by introducing yourself, and then I've got kind of this outline that we've created, and I'll kind of cue you up for each of those items.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you for having me. And thank you so much to everybody who's here today. I'm Belma McCaffrey. I'm the CEO, founder, and I'm also a career and leadership coach of a company called Work Bigger. Work Bigger is a career coaching company, and we support our members and clients in 3 ways. We have a group coaching membership. I work with clients privately, one-on-one, to support with career development issues. And also we work with organizations to lead trainings, workshops, all of that to support, on the culture side. I started Work Bigger, just to give you guys some context. I started Work Bigger because of a personal pain point. I spent, I would say, probably all of my 20s feeling really disconnected from my career. Confidence was a big issue for me because what I was really seeking was a sense of purpose, and I really struggled with finding that. And at the time, I didn't have the resources. So I really refer to my 20s as this cycle where I was like going from job to job, testing one job, testing another, and throughout that whole time, just feeling really frustrated, really burned out, disconnected, and yearning and seeking something bigger. So to get out of that cycle, I decided to go back to business school, right? And thinking back to it, I'm like, so many of us did that, or we still do that. We look at grad school as like that pivot. And when I was there, I saw that I wasn't the only one. I had so many of my classmates who were in that same boat. Everybody was looking at business school as their do-over. And I also recognized we hadn't done the deeper work or asked the bigger questions of what's really going to be the return on investment with business school? Because it's not just the tuition that you pay, right? It's also leaving your full-time salary. I left, I was working at Condé Nast before that, so I left a really good salary to go back to school full-time. So that's kind of where I saw, I was like, this is crazy. We don't have access to more resources to help us figure out what we want to do, to help us develop a growth mindset, which is absolutely critical when you are looking to up level in your career. And that's how Work Bigger was born. It was really born as a way to solve these issues. In terms of my experience, so I have almost 10 years of experience working in media. Companies I've worked at are primarily strategy and business development roles. At companies like the Associated Press, which I was at more recently before I fully dove into Work Bigger, Condé Nast, Group M, so really large global companies. And I saw, because I have experience in corporate, just the disconnection that exists there. And as a coach, I'm trained with the Neuro Leadership Institute. And what they do is they combine neuroscience with leadership development. And that's something that I incorporate into all of our trainings, all of our group coaching. I'm also going to bring some of that into our conversation for today, because I think it's really important to understand what's happening to our brains right now, and the stress that we're experiencing, the anxiety around the job search itself. I'll just share some resources to help support through that, so we can all better manage it. And I have an MBA in marketing, a BA from Syracuse University, and just the career space and professional development is something that, I've been running Work Bigger for 4 years now, but I have been in this space, I would say, for over a decade, just out of personal passion and obsession with this type of content. So
amazing. So she's the real deal, you guys. Awesome. So Belma, let's start with, so before we even get into the job search stuff and kind of talking about, like, I would say the strategy around finding jobs and the questions people might have around that. And we were talking earlier that there's kind of a couple main camps of people right now, people who were already job searching before all this happened, and what happens with them. People who maybe just were just laid off or furloughed or something like that, so they need to start a job search and quickly. And then people who fall into the camp of, like, maybe you're still employed, but you're not really sure, right? This is a very uncertain time for everybody. And so before we talk about kind of what everyone can start doing, because I think everyone's natural reaction is to do, hustle, work harder. I want to talk, and I know you guys might turn off a little bit with this. I know self-care and mental health and all that is an overused buzzword, but Belma, let's talk about it specifically. And also, I know that you were talking about what happens to your brain when you're this stressed out. So let's talk about mental and emotional health and kind of the mindset, and what can people do right now to make sure that they're not kind of their own worst enemy.
Yeah, and please, nobody turn off during this part because it's foundational. And I really feel like this is where we all need to start right now. I think it's kind of crazy that this is.
Belma, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone is saying that we froze, so I'm going to refresh our stream and see if it comes back for everybody.
Oh, they're saying it's back now. Okay.
Oh, it's back now? Okay. Let's see.
Oh, still frozen.
Okay, I'm still going to refresh. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Okay, can you guys all hear us and see us? Belma, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great. And it looks like it's back, at least for most people.
Okay. Live webinar. Also, you guys, there are more people on this live webinar than we've ever had on a live webinar before. So good. It's all good. So definitely let us know in that live chat if it does freeze again, because I think because there's so many of you on here right now, we just need to kind of click it back in. And luckily we caught it pretty quickly. So Belma, you weren't very far into your explanation. I know this is a tough question, but can you just pick back up where you were?
Yeah, of course,
Okay.
of course. And there's so much, you guys, that I can share around managing mental health and mindset. So I'm gonna just try to cover the basics here in the interest of time. But basically, what I think this is really an opportunity to work on our mental and emotional health, right? Like we're in the situation where many of us are stuck at home and we're trying to work on a lot of anxiety is coming up and a lot of stress is coming up. And I think it's really difficult to tackle things like a job search that requires you to be strategic, that requires you to be proactive, right? That requires you to come from a positive, confident mindset when you're in this place of anxiety and when you're dealing with so much stress and constant news and also just the uncertainty. Like we are still, in the early phases of this thing, we don't know where it's going to be. So the first thing I just encourage you all to do is to not run away from the anxiety and the stress, right? And really to just sit with it if you can and use this as an opportunity to work on that. And it's cultivate presence is really the message that I want to get across. And I'll talk a little bit about the brain and why I think working on your mindset first is so important, right? So the way our brain operates is essentially in two ways, okay? And it's the away state or the toward state. When we're in the away state, which many of us are in right now, or essentially that the emotions we're experiencing are a lot of anxiety, fear, frustration, uncertainty, right? So I want you guys to all think about when you're in this place of fear, what are some of the actions that you're taking when it comes to the job search, right? If I had to bet, there's two things, right? You're in fight or flight. You're either like sending out job applications without like really thinking about it, right? You're just like, I just got to get something out there, right? From this place of desperation. Or you are in complete avoidance and procrastinating. You're like, I'm just going to shut all of this off because I can't deal with it. It's too much. And neither one of those actions are really going to serve you, right? When you're in the toward state, on the other hand, you are feeling positive, you're feeling grounded, you're feeling confident, right? You are essentially feeling good. What's happening when you're in the toward state is your body's releasing dopamine, and dopamine is what motivates you to take action. And if you think about it, the actions you're going to take from that place are going to be more strategic, more thoughtful, really actions that serve you are going to show up differently. So I share that because I think one thing that's really important, or really an outcome of managing your mindset right now, is cultivating a mindset of possibility. Like I was watching the news the other day and reading stuff online, and they're sharing like unemployment is going to go up to 20%, right? And we're going to lose 5 to 6 million jobs in March alone. And focusing solely on that stuff is just so overwhelming. And what you really need in that moment is to have that mindset of possibility, like, where is the opportunity for me? So I just want to stress that to be able to just take this time to work on your emotional and mental health, so that as you're working on your job search, it's really coming from a healthy place. It's coming from a confident place. And therefore, the outcomes that you can create, the results you can create for yourself will be more powerful. So I'm going to pause right there. And yeah, I'll pause right there, Lauren, and you let me know.
So I actually have some questions. I'm a very like, just tell me what to do kind of person. So when you say work on your mental and emotional health, what are some concrete things that I could do? Someone mentioned, getting some natural sunlight within 30 minutes of waking up, the meditation. Like there's some, I think, obvious things that we've heard, like meditation, yoga, but like, okay, let's take some of the obvious things back. Oh, it's buffering again. Yeah, there's just so many people on this live webinar. So okay, I'm going to refresh us. Hold on a second. Okay, Belma, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, so what are some things, concrete things that people can do to work on their mental and emotional health?
Yeah, so journaling, one is a big one. I think first, this is gonna probably feel really uncomfortable for many of you, but just sitting and experiencing the discomfort, like literally just sitting with it, is something that we can do that we don't do, and that feels like an inaction, but it's actually an action, like just observing your thoughts, observing your feelings. And if that feels really challenging, journaling is such a great tool. That for me has been life changing, right? So just taking the time and just writing out, like, what am I feeling right now? What thoughts am I having right now? Just to have a place for them to go. So I think that's really helpful. Talking to somebody that you trust and somebody that you feel safe with, right? Just having that conversation, sharing your fears. Yeah, I think those are two tactics. The biggest thing is just experiencing the discomfort and not running away from it. Because the only way through to that, more positive mindset, you'll get there, but first you just need to give yourself some space, right? And not going on your phone and checking Instagram and Facebook as a way to avoid it, but really just like journal, process, think, sit. Sometimes do nothing. That's often good enough.
Yeah, I think some tips that have worked for me really well are truly creating structure around my screen time. So that means for me, as you guys know, I don't have a ton of self-discipline. So I actually put my phone in another room so I can truly disconnect, watching something that makes you laugh or feel good. Doing like going for a walk is really important for me, especially right now, since we're all kind of cooped up. I think journaling is awesome. I've also have encouraged people to do things where you're not related to a screen, but stuff that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something. So like cleaning out your closet or reorganizing your pantry or something where you get to have that accomplishment feeling, or as you said, kind of a confidence boost. I think that is really important as well. So just some ideas, you guys, I think every day, maybe before you go to bed, like having a ritual around sleep. So 30 minutes beforehand, maybe do a couple stretches, maybe work on like a puzzle or, adult coloring books or whatever it is that takes your mind away from a screen, because sleep is going to be super important right now too. And I know a lot of us are kind of having a lot of anxiety, waking up with anxiety and stuff like that. But I think creating some sort of nighttime ritual, cooking and baking. So those are all reading awesome ideas, you guys. So just I think Belma is hitting on something that maybe you guys know, but you need to hear again, which is find the thing that you need every day to take your stress and your anxiety from here down to here, and more screen time and more news and, getting kind of what my mom calls like, climbing up into your tree, so to speak, of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? That isn't going to help you see the future and plan for your next steps. Anything else?
No, I was going to add the puzzle, the reading, and also Stay Focused is an app that I use on my phone to like block out my social media apps and my email apps, because that's how I avoid stuff, like with my phone. So think about like what you do to avoid self-care, right, for lack of a better word, and I love that you said like creating structure around that. So if anybody's looking for an app, Stay Focused is a really good one.
Amazing. Okay, so now let's get into the strategy piece, because again, we're into concrete examples. Like I said, there's kind of those three specific camps of people where they're all looking for a strategy on what they can do and how they can stay proactive with their career right now. So let's start. I don't know if you want to start with kind of a general strategy message. Okay, let's start with that.
Yeah, and I'll share this, Lauren, too. I created a whole workbook for you guys. So if you're looking for to really put some of the stuff that I'm sharing now into action, I recommend that you download that, because it's going to give you some more context too. But in terms of strategy, one thing that I see people doing even before the coronavirus hit, right, is people just applying to jobs online, which, yes, that's helpful, right? But should be like a very small part of your strategy. And one thing that I've seen people struggle with is really figure out what it is they want to do, right? So one thing I recommend right now is using this time to get super clear, especially if you're one of those people that have always struggled with the questions of how do I make an impact? What is it that I want to do in the long term? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? These are questions that I hear all the time. This is the perfect time to start working on that and really honing in on your mission and honing in on the impact that you want to make in the world. Because purpose, right? Purpose is a core human need. In addition to mental and emotional health, which we just talked about, purpose is also absolutely important for our survival, right? So what I would say is take this time to get clear on what your mission is. And that's a process. And I can talk through that process. And again, just download that workbook because I take you through like the whole framework and you have a visual in there of what it means to find your mission, which essentially is a 3-step process. One, it's getting clear on your why, right? Getting clear on your deeper drivers, what it is that's important to you. That means understanding your interests, okay? And I want to differentiate. Passion and mission are not the same thing. I hear people say all the time, I just want to do something I'm passionate about. It's not the same thing as your mission, okay? Your passion can be part of your mission. So, and I'll just add, because passion is fleeting, right? And especially in times like this, many of us are not focused or we don't care about doing something we're passionate about. We really want something now to help sustain us. So start with really understanding your why, right? What are your interests? What are your values? What do you stand for? What are the personal experiences that you've had and the pain points that you've had that have shaped who you are? This requires some self-reflection. This requires some work. Okay, it's a process. It just takes time, and it's something that we're never taught to do. We're not taught to do this in college. We're not taught to do this at our jobs. Unless we seek it out, we're not approaching our career from this standpoint, and it's a perfect time to work on these bigger questions. That's step number one. Step number two is the how. How are you going to make an impact? How are you going to bring your mission into the world? And that means getting clear on your strengths, getting clear on your skill set and how you're going to add value in the workplace, right? And what is your unique value? Because we all have that. We all have like our own way of contributing, right? And I think it's really important to hone in on that how. And then the third piece is the what. That's the job role, right? That's identifying what it is that we want to do and how we want to bring our mission to life. And I want to differentiate job role because I get this question in the Work Bigger community and with our clients all the time. The job role, the thing that you do is not your mission. Your mission is how you want to make an impact. The job role is how you bring that mission to life. And this is a strategy. And what I see works really well is that when you're going out there and you're interviewing and you're connecting with employers from a values perspective and you're speaking about your mission and the impact that you want to make and how that ties to their business and their mission, it's a different conversation. It's not, you know, these are my skill sets and this is what I feel I do well. It's really like, this is the impact that I want to make and this is how I'm going to help change your company. And that is what employers want to hear. So I just can't stress enough the importance of doing that work right now. I feel like this is like our time to do that. So I'll pause right there because I just did a lot of talking and I'll see what follow-up questions you have for me, Lauren.
Well, I was just going to echo that. I interviewed, she was the director of inclusion and diversity at Pinterest, and she said the same thing. She said, we are not a company that hires for culture fits, we hire for value fits. So it is really important that you guys recognize what is your mission and what are your values, because that's going to make you a much better applicant or candidate when you're in the interview process, when you can speak about that and you can align your values with their values. And maybe you're about to get to this, but I would say that it's also really important that you don't just apply to jobs, but you also are really specific about applying to companies and roles that you are able to research and you recognize, hey, they do have a similar value set to me, right? Because there needs to be that match as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's going to just be a different conversation. One other thing that I want to add, one of our Work Bigger members, we just finished coaching her on finding your mission. And she did a call for our community on what that means, what that looks like. And one thing she said, which I think is so relevant for this time, she quoted what's the quote? Luck equals opportunity plus preparation.
Yeah.
And and I think that's so powerful. And I want you guys to take that with you too, because if you can prepare now, right? If you can do this work now, when the market picks back up, that's your preparation, right? The market's going to pick back up. This is temporary, right? That's the opportunity. And when you find that job, that opportunity, you're going to think it's luck, but it's not. It's because you've been doing the work all along, and it matters. So I just want to share that, because to me, that was such a powerful way to invest your time, right? And to really look at this. This is a time to prepare. This is a time to go deeper and to really answer the questions that you haven't answered about yourself now.
Yeah. So the workbook, you guys, that Belma created, that's more of like the tactical stuff. She's kind of going over the more high level of like why this matters. But if you use that workbook and you do the work with that, you'll be able to get some answers. Because somebody was asking, how do you find the companies that align with your values? So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. Like, okay, using this time to create some good habits that really calm your mental and emotional health so that you can think about, what is it that I want? What is my mission? What are my values? I also put a worksheet that we have on Career Contessa about figure out your next career move, which asks you a lot of questions around like what we call your career ideals. So those are, we've given you some homework so you can be proactive with that. But can we talk a little bit about like the actual strategy of finding the companies and like what you should be doing with your resume? Or I know our third tip that we're going to talk about is networking, but can we talk about kind of some of these materials that are related to job search, and whether you are transitioning, what like in the middle of a job search or transitioning, like everybody can do this stuff. Can we talk about some of these tactical pieces?
Absolutely. And I just want to clarify, Lauren, so the workbook is starting you on the self-reflection piece.
Perfect.
So it'll share the framework of finding your mission, and then it starts you with the why piece. So I just want to clarify there. Let's definitely talk about finding the companies. Can you be more specific with your question in terms of, like what we could talk about networking strategies, which I think is absolutely important in finding the right companies right now. I want to make sure that's what you're looking
before we go to networking, let's talk about, because when people are applying for jobs, there's two things they have to do. They probably have to have a resume, and then they also have to find the company or the job to apply to. So let's talk about those two things, resume and how to find jobs that align with your values that you can apply to.
Yeah, so I think finding jobs that align with your values first is getting clear on your own values first, right? What is it that you stand for and that really speaks to you? And in terms of finding companies that are out there, there's so many different resources that you can use, like Career Contessa. You have a lot of different job opportunities on there, so you can start with online research. And then you can also start with just having conversations, starting with your immediate network of what people recommend based on what you're sharing your values are. Like, for example, you could say diversity is really important to me. What are some companies that are at the forefront of that right now? So it's really leveraging those conversations to help you fill in the gaps that you have. Okay. And I think that's another thing too, in terms of finding the right opportunities, is starting with your knowledge gaps. Like, what are some of the questions that you're struggling with right now, right? Like, what are I call them knowledge gaps. And maybe that is like, what are the companies that are aligned with XYZ values? Where can I find them? And then, using either connections or doing online research to find them.
Yeah. Some of our favorite sites, of course, outside of Career Contessa, for if you guys want to learn more about specific companies, LinkedIn is great. I would also recommend there's the Muse, In Her Site. I think Fairy Godboss also has company reviews. Yeah. Glassdoor. But let's talk about our favorite tactic, which is networking and informational interviews. So let's talk about number 3, which this is something that people can be doing right now to be proactive. So I just want to give people some concrete items. We talked about the concrete stuff for your emotional and mental health. now we're talking about strategy. You can work on Belma's worksheet. You can start to identify what is your mission and what are your values. You can do a little research on the companies and who's still hiring, which I know, Belma, you've got a list of some companies that you saw are hiring right now. We have a whole slew of open jobs on careercontessa.com. So I know it seems really dire out there, but people are still hiring. Belma, do you want to mention the company research that you have, and then we can go into networking? Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too, in terms of finding the right companies right now. And Lauren and I were chatting about this, just everything is changing so fast. And I'm really interested to see like which industries are going to continue to contract, which ones are just on hold temporarily, and which ones are growing. And again, I just want to bring it back to that possibility mindset, because to find the opportunities, right, to find the industries that are growing, you have to have that like mindset of possibility. So some things that I'm seeing, and a lot of our community members are sharing this, is obviously opportunities with like hand sanitizer companies. Touchland is a one that I recently saw. I believe they're women run. That's one that's doing really good. Anything toilet paper, anything eco-friendly too, that's really good. I saw sales for bidets are up. Tech companies are doing well. Like Amazon is hiring 100,000 employees. Zoom is doing really well. So anything that is going to support, I think, the online business space, because a lot of, brick and mortar stores, even retailers, I'm seeing are like shifting to online. So if you're interested in the tech space, now's a good time to continue exploring that. Healthcare is a really big one. Accounting, that's something that's never going to go away. I see opportunities for social media. So still that storytelling. I can't say this for certain, but I feel like content is going to continue to grow essentially because there's so much movement online right now. So anything social media focused, and also online education. I heard Teachable was recently acquired. They're hiring for a bunch of roles. So if that's an area that interests you, go on their site and check those out. I also think, I'm like looking at my list here because I've been tracking them, but companies like Peloton, because we're not able to go to the gym right now, right? So anything that encourages that basic need that we have of like exercise and physical wellness and survival. So just go back to like, what are people's basic needs? We have 4 core needs: emotional, mental, spiritual, which is where the purpose comes in, and physical, right? And use that to like look at the opportunities that are out there. So companies like Peloton, and then digital health, like online therapists, right? Because mental health right now is key. Also opportunities with communities, because connection is really important during this time. So I'll pause. Actually, and can I add to just some industries that I'm noticing? And I think everybody knows this for the most part, but just industries that I'm seeing are contracting. Mm-hmm. Can I share?
Yeah.
Because there's so many, like, I just think like unemployment, 20%, all these numbers are so scary. So it helps to put some like framing around them. Travel, obviously. And I'm thinking too, like that's going to be temporary because people are going to want to pick that back up, right? It's like, I'm already talking with my friends about how we're like ready to travel when this whole thing is over. Cruises, airlines, the hospitality industry, restaurants, all that stuff. That's where like I think a lot of the contraction is happening.
Mm-hmm. And I would just add too, if you are, if you were in one of those industries, think about what are your transferable skills that you can transfer into something else. So for example, if you worked in hospitality, maybe, customer experience for a tech company that works fully remote. Flex Jobs is an awesome website where they have like pretty much only remote-based companies. So that's something you guys can check out as well. So let's go into the networking, because I think one of the questions we got, which I just want to kind of address right now, is, are there hiring freezes? Yes, a lot of companies, we're all in this state of, it's not just us as, individuals, it's companies too, which are run by humans, where we're all in this place of feeling like, we don't know what's going to happen. We are taking this day by day. And that means companies are being really cautious right now. Some of them are absolutely still growing and still hiring. You guys saw earlier in the chat, someone who got our jobs email today and is already, or found a job on Career Contessa and has an interview. That means, video interviews, right? So there are definitely people who are pivoting and quickly addressing this and moving forward. For other industries and other big companies, those roles might still be open, but they might be waiting to actually start their interview process until they know what's going to happen with their world. So while we're in this sort of wait and see, all of these tips that Belma is talking about are things that you can start to apply. Do the self-reflection, start thinking about companies, start thinking about how you can update your resume and optimize your LinkedIn profile. In a way, you guys, this is sort of a really unique time where you get to put in where everyone's always like, I don't have any time. Job searching is a full-time job. Right now you have the time or the ability, and you can carve out the space to make sure that you are having everything very organized and ready to go. So that when those hiring freezes are up, or if, for example, a company is hiring right now, you can start the application. Now, a piece of the application process that we're about to talk about that we haven't talked about is how important networking is. Whether we are going through the coronavirus and a hiring freeze or not, networking is still a really, really important piece of the job search. I think I read a stat once that it was like 80% of jobs are found through networking and hired through networking. That means that what Belma's about to talk about is incredibly important, and that's something that you can be doing right now. So as you find those companies that you think are a good fit for you, that align with your values, maybe they're hiring right now, maybe it's that they are fully remote companies and that's what you want to go for moving forward. Whatever the reason is that that company has made it onto your list of people that you're interested in, potentially pursuing or applying to jobs for, let's talk about networking, because networking and building relationships with people in those companies, as well as, other people, is going to be incredibly important. So Belma, let's talk about networking, connections, and digital community right now.
Yeah, and I actually saw when we logged on, I saw people asking to connect on LinkedIn, and I think that's awesome. Networking is something that you can continue to do during this time. And for me, what's really helpful there, because I remember being a college graduate and trying to navigate the networking world, and it felt so uncomfortable and inauthentic, is really thinking about, how can you build authentic connections, right, that are going to support you with this job search and beyond. So that could look like tapping into digital communities whose values you align with, right? So places like Career Contessa, obviously Work Bigger, Fairy Godboss, Lauren mentioned a few of them. Dreamers and Doers is another really good one. They have a jobs and gigs free Facebook group that you can tap into to find opportunities there. But I think, you can continue to network and build connections. Start with your immediate network if it feels really daunting, right? And if you don't have a large network as is, and see what your immediate network recommends that you do. Like, who else should you connect with? Taking advantage of Zoom calls, one-on-one or group. And I think also adopting a community mindset here can be really helpful, because so many of us crave connection right now. Maybe even starting a group of you who are, all in the job search together, and you're keeping each other accountable. You're sharing networking tips, you're sharing what's working, you're sharing what's not working and what you can do better. That way you have a system and a process to track everything that's coming out of the networking, and then you're also keeping each other accountable, right? So you're not just like, drinking wine at the end of the night. There's nothing wrong with that, but this way you're just continuing to make progress.
Yeah, we also have some networking templates on Career Contessa. I'm going to share them in the live chat here. And in these networking templates, you guys, I made them, if that makes you feel any better or worse. But they're networking templates on how you can let your network know that you're job searching, how you can reach out to people for informational interviews, how you can, and I would say what's really important is that you truly understand that this order of events is that Belma is mentioning matters, right? Because when you start reaching out for informational interviews, or you start letting your network know that you are looking for a job, they're going to want to know that people want to help, but you have to let them know what it is that you want so that they can help you. So it's very important that if you start reaching out to people who are in your network to say, hey, I recently got laid off. Here are my skill sets. Here's what I'm looking for in my next role, that you know the answers to that. And you're not kind of flip-flopping back and forth constantly. If you are applying or reaching out to people for informational interviews, then it's really important that you are clear about how they can help you. Hey, can I have 20 minutes of your time? You work for a fully remote company. I'm trying to decide if that's a good fit for me. Would you have 20 minutes where you can talk, like create that commonality, let them know why you're reaching out to them and how they can help you. Do not be asking them for a job right away, but use this time to again, do this prep work, right? These jobs, yes, there are jobs open right now, but there are going to be more jobs open in the future as well as when things start to bounce back. So use this time to really manage those career changes in a proactive and effective way.
Can I add 2 things, Lauren?
Yes.
To that. So I also think right now people are at a time and place where they want to help. Like, I definitely feel that people want to help because a lot of people feel helpless, stuck in their home.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to really think about, and to use this time to ask for help, right? And to receive that help. And then the other thing, just in terms of like when you make the ask and also sharing your skill set, when you were talking about resume and all of that storytelling, one thing that I think is really helpful is focusing on the impact that you make and making those skills transferable, right? As you're having these conversations, focus on the impact that you've made versus the tactics or versus the tasks that you did.
Yeah.
It's a very, very different conversation when you can talk about, as an example, like the social media project I ran resulted in XYZ following, and then this was the business outcome. It makes things so tangible for the other person, and it really helps them see, okay, even though this person comes from a different industry, I actually see what they're doing is going to drive results for my business. So I just want to share that because I think that's really important with the storytelling and with communicating value in your skill set.
Yeah.
Piece.
And the resume course that I just dropped in here that Nicole said she used, you guys, we talk a lot about that, especially in your bullet points. How can you make your bullet points share your accomplishment and not just your responsibility? That is super important. When I was an administrative assistant, one of my responsibilities was to answer the phone, but the accomplishment was that I was able to answer more than 100 phone calls a day. And I responded to people's emails within 24 hours to make sure that people had answers and it, mitigated problems quickly, right? That's an accomplishment versus the responsibility of answering the phone. It is incredibly important that you are aware of what your transferable skills are and you can communicate their value. So we've got resources, Belma's Work Bigger and the worksheet or the workbook that we put in there. Those are all really good places. The only other thing I want to talk about that we didn't get to is these skills, right? If you are trying to transition your career or you're thinking about going into a job where, again, it's somewhat transferable, but you have what we call some skills gaps, this is an awesome time to enroll in some online learning. There's a lot of free classes out there right now to learn new skills. Maybe it's learning new software. If you see in the job description that they want you to be able to use Asana, which is a project management software, then go on Asana and enroll in their tutorials. Go on YouTube and sign up for Asana and learn how to use it. So in that interview or even on your resume, you can add Asana under your skills and software list. I think ultimately, we also have a free worksheet on how to read a job posting. I'm going to put that in the live chat also. You guys, job postings tell you a lot about what they are looking for and how you can tailor your materials. Which is, I think, incredibly important. And it might be something where if you are reaching out to somebody for networking, you can use sometimes a job description as a good tool to kind of, create like your outline or help you answer some of those questions. But don't forget that this is an awesome time to learn skills and to show off your communication skills, your leadership skills. Someone mentioned like those are entry level roles. What about managers? This is an awesome time for you to work on some of your management skills, right? Listening, communication, empathy. There are we have a course on critical problem solving, right? These are the times to enroll in these courses and learn this stuff so that you can add it to your not just your resume and your LinkedIn, but also you can talk about these things in those interviews or in those networking conversations with people. So anyway, it's just, there's a ton of tools out there, obviously. And Belma, should we get to their questions? There's a lot of questions. There's 39 of them. Okay.
Oh man. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to record our answer. So Angelica said, I was laid off from my job due to the virus. Ironically, I was already applying to jobs leading up to the layoff and virus as I had the itch for a career change. What is your current advice on looking for a job right now? I had 3 strong leads, but they have fallen to the wayside due to the virus. Feeling a tad stressed about my timeline and if my applications will even be looked at once this all rolls over.
Yeah. So first, go back to, what was her name? Was it
Angelica?
Angelica. Okay. So Angelica, yeah. So go back to the mindset work that we talked about, right? So managing your stress that comes with it and that pressure that you're feeling to like hurry up and find another job right now. And then the second thing, in terms of applying, I say keep applying, keep looking, like, especially if that feels good for you, like stay in action if that feels right. Look at the industries, right, to maybe help you shift the job search a little bit. Look at the industries that are growing right now versus contracting, right? So just some of the companies that I talked about before, and just some of the industries that I see growing, like the digital health space, healthcare, accounting, all of that stuff. And think about like the basic needs that people have right now. Again, there's those 4 core needs: emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, right? And those are things that people need all the time. And then see if you can backtrack into the industries. But I would say keep job searching if that feels good. Just maybe pivot to see what industries are where the opportunities are going to be for you.
Yeah. And Angelica, I would just mention like feeling stressed about your timeline. We're all in the thick of it right now. So try to control the stuff that you can control. We cannot control when this virus and the effects of it are going to end right now. What we can do is we can control how we respond to it. So right now, those 3 job leads, maybe they're not necessarily gone, but they're just on the back burner. So what can you do to start planting seeds or other job leads in other places, right? So find those companies, start having those informational interviews, working on your resume, your LinkedIn, learning new skills, really, but with kindness and grace for yourself. This isn't something you need to do every day. One of the things that I have found that's been really helpful during these kind of times too is to create some structure. So like how many hours a day are you going, kind of like when people will do like meal prep. So like plan your week ahead. Like I'm going to do this many hours of job search related activities on these days. Here are the things I'm going to do. And a bonus tip would be find an accountability partner. Obviously there's people here in this live chat. Can you guys connect with each other and get on, a Zoom call or a phone call or even email with each other to keep each other accountable to this work that Belma is talking about, and also the timelines and stuff like that. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Peyton said, I had a few interviews recently that went well, but both emailed saying their companies just instituted hiring freezes. I said I understood, and I look forward to continuing the conversation when the time was right. My question, I don't want them to forget about me. One job is at my dream company with opportunities for lateral moves to my dream career. How do I keep in touch so they remember me? And how or when do I check in to see if they're hiring again?
Yeah, so I'm feeling like sharing something less tactical here and putting the question back on you, like what feels good in terms of staying in touch with them, right? Because I'm hearing that you want to cultivate a relationship. And I think this is also an opportunity to share exactly what you shared on here, that you really see them as like this is your dream job. This is your dream opportunity. Make that known to them. They're not going to forget that. They're going to remember that, especially in this time. I would say start from there, be authentic about this opportunity, and, hopefully just like have some faith. Hopefully it'll work out afterwards. Like to what Lauren said, there's so much out of our control right now, but I think expressing your genuine interest will go such a long way.
Yeah, I think genuine interest. And then also one of the things that I like to do is stay up to date with the company. So you could create like a Google News alert, or you can just type the company into Google and then hit the news section and see if there's anything new going on with the company. And you could use that as your reason to reach out and just like check in. So if you saw that their company, I don't know, is all of a sudden going to start turning their company into a hand sanitizer manufacturing place, then you could reach out to them and say, hey, I saw that you guys are doing this. I think that's amazing. This is such a wild time. Wishing you all the best. Hope you're safe and healthy, right? So you can use other things that are happening to stay top of mind for them as well. In terms of checking in on the job, I would say right now they're on a hiring freeze. Give it until some big change happens with this virus, like the numbers start to go down, or they say that we're allowed to go back to work or something like that, maybe before you follow up on the specific job at the moment. Okay. R says, anyone have suggestions for how to set up online profile, e.g. LinkedIn, without pigeonholing to specific role or position for someone with broad skills across multiple areas?
This is where I would say you got to find your mission. You really have to find your mission. I think this whole thing of like, I don't want to pigeonhole myself, right, comes from a place of fear. And for anybody here who's in marketing, right, in marketing, you have to be very targeted about your message. And it's the same thing with a job search. You are targeting yourself. And I understand this is a time where there's a lot of fear, right, and industries are contracting, but you want to hone in on your message. I say, don't be afraid to pigeonhole yourself. Get clear on the impact that you want to make and communicate that on your LinkedIn, and be targeted. Don't be afraid to target those companies that you want and the job roles that you want. You're going to have your strategy will be so much more focused. Your efforts are going to be a lot more focused versus spreading yourself thin and applying to a bunch of different places and having different cover letters with different messages. So that's my take. I think be focused and don't be afraid to pigeonhole. Lauren, I don't know if you disagree, but
no, I agree.
Yeah.
A story I've told before is when I was a recruiter at Hulu, we went to South by Southwest, and we had we were at the career fair piece of it where we were hiring, and somebody came up to our table and they said, oh, Hulu, what are you guys looking for? And we said, well, what are you looking for? Maybe we have a role open. That is how everybody is going to be thinking about this. So you actually need to be specific. Now, when it comes to your broad skills, what Belma is talking about is you can have a lot of skills, but your mission can incorporate those. So for example, my mission is I'm a builder. I like to build things. I like to solve problems. I like to be part of organizations that are builders, not just maintainers, if that makes sense. So my mission would be to be part of a company or to bring my problem solving skills or my builder skills to that company. That doesn't mean that my skills are only a couple things. It means that I've got a lot of skills, but ultimately my mission is that I like to build things, right? So I think the first place for you to start is use Belma's workbook to find out your mission. And then what I think is actually really great is come up with your why or your description. Maybe you cover this in your workbook, Belma, but like come up with like, how would you describe yourself? Not what you do or what your job title is, but what do you do? Like who are you? And again, that mission. And then use that as like on LinkedIn, the summary. You can put that on your summary. If you want to create an online portfolio, that's where you can describe yourself there. We actually have 2 online courses. One is called Digital You, which is how to create your portfolio site. And then we also have one called the LinkedIn Lab, which is how to optimize your LinkedIn profile. So those are also 2 good places for you to get step-by-step help with this. Okay, let's go to Nicole. So Nicole said, I have been taking short online courses and studying the industries I'd like to be part of while the stay-at-home order is in effect. What are the best ways to highlight these in future interviews and applications?
Can you repeat the beginning, Lauren? I missed that.
She said, I've been taking short online courses and studying the industries I'd like to be part of while we're, all staying at home. What is the best way to highlight these in future interviews and applications?
Yeah, I would say it depends on what you're applying to, right? And if they're relevant, just putting them on your resume and then speaking to how they have helped you how they've helped you, but also how they're going to help you add value to the organization. Yep. Right. So always making it about the company and bringing in like how your skill set, which includes the knowledge, which includes the courses you're taking, how they're going to directly impact, right, how you do your job and how you're adding value.
Yeah. And one of the things I love to do in interviews, or what I love people to do in interviews, is when they drop it so like very subtly. Like if you, in an interview, I might ask someone like, tell me about, I don't know, your social media experience. And they might say, well, you know, I took this online course about yada, yada, yada. And what I learned from there, I was able to implement this way. And then I saw this result, right? So it can be a really subtle drop. Anu in the comment left a comment for you, Nicole, where she said, you know, if they offer certificates, put those on your resume and LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn even has a section where you can sometimes add the organization and tell us what you got. Also, I'm a big fan on your resume to have a section that Anu said audited courses, but under education, you could say education and then line like online education, you could add them there too. So there's subtle and not so subtle ways to doing it. But what Belma said is the most important thing. No matter what, when you talk about this stuff, it should be how it's going to benefit the company. Okay.
Can I also add one more thing to that? One thing that I'm really a big fan of is when people add anything around leadership development and like any coaching work that you've done, that you've received, I think really can be so powerful, because that shows that you are a learner, and it shows that you're focused on your professional development, which will impact like the culture of the organization, how you lead and manage teams. So if you've done any of that, you've worked as a coach before, you've taken any leadership training, include that as well.
That's a good idea. Okay, Liz says, what is the etiquette around asking for informational interviews during this time? How do you advance your networking while being empathetic or compassionate about everything that is going on? That's a good question.
Yes. Yeah. So this kind of goes back to what I'm hearing too, that there's like some fear around here of like, am I going to do it right? Right. So if that feels really scary, just start with your immediate network, like your current friends that you feel safe with, and share with them your story, share with them your knowledge gaps, like the questions that you're looking to answer for yourself for this job search, for this process, like wherever you're in, and see who they recommend that you connect with. I always think soft introductions are a little bit more, well, they're a lot more helpful when you are feeling really nervous around that. But I think also just your desire to want to be empathetic is, you know, just look at that, because I think that says a lot about you, and you're probably going to show up to that call with empathy. And, you know, and again, this is a time when people want to help. So just, I think taking advantage of that and asking for help is okay if you feel nervous about that.
Yeah, I think too, just make it easy for them to say yes. So don't, you know, write them 3 pages of an email, you know, be really specific about your learning goal, your availability, try to maybe make it a phone call to make it super simple for them if you can. Just try to remove any barriers from them potentially saying no as well. And then of course, I like to always end those calls by saying, you know, please let me know if there's anything I can do to stay in touch with you, right? Like, or not stay in touch, but add value for you. Can I help you in any way? Sometimes just saying it, whether they take you up on it or there's something specific you can do, it means a lot to people right now. Okay. So Jasmine says, I've been searching for jobs in a new industry prior to the COVID-19 outbreak. Should I wait to make the shift and apply for positions similar to my current one?
Yeah, so I would go back to the industry conversation that we had with that one. So it depends on what industry you're in and where you're applying, and do you think those industries are going to be at a standstill for a long time? Right? We talked about hospitality being impacted, travel, cruise lines, all of that stuff. Unless if you're in an industry that could possibly be growing right now, like healthcare, right, tech, you're going to want to keep applying, right? So just go back to that and see what feels good for you.
Mm-hmm. So Lisa says, how do you foresee companies changing their ways with allowing remote work post-COVID-19? Many companies who didn't need or want to do business online basically are forced to do right now. Do you think remote work will expand as companies shift during this disruption, or will it reverse?
I hope it expands. I feel like if anything, there's been a lot of companies out there who want to implement more flexibility for their employees. They want to implement more remote opportunities, but they just haven't had the structure. And now we're kind of being forced into that. So I hope in terms of positive implications that, whatever happens after this, that's a positive impact.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, Kelsey says, I was recently laid off along with my entire department due to the impact of COVID-19. I was in a project management role in a team of 10, all working remotely. How can I highlight my experience managing a remote team, knowing this may be an asset when seeking a new job in the current environment?
Yeah, that is an asset. That is a huge asset right now. So I would think about what is it that you do so well with managing remote teams? Like, what were some of the pain points that you're able to address right now? So honing in on what are the struggles that companies are having with managing remote teams, and then how can you specifically address that? I imagine from your experience, you already know how to do that, and you've been doing it a while. So connecting like this pain point that's happening right now with what you know how to do.
Yeah. And Kelsey, another good idea that I just had is like, you could maybe go on LinkedIn and ask people who are managers right now, what are their biggest challenges, and just kind of like create like your own little survey or like focus group to understand like, what are they struggling with the most, or what do companies need from them the most? Kind of jot down what are those things that they need, and then use those to put into your LinkedIn profile, your informational or your networking conversations, your resume, that kind of stuff. So sometimes I feel like just asking people who are managers who are working remote right now, what is kind of the hardest part, and then kind of using those words in your materials is great. I think also the fact that you are a project manager, that's an amazing skill to have. A lot of companies are going to need that, and you can pretty much switch industries fairly quick or fairly easily with that. And then the remote team. So for you, I think it's going to be about also making sure that you have a really clear idea on what companies you want to go work for next, and your why behind that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining our live webinar. I'm sorry that the video screen was kind of not always working perfectly. There is a replay. I'm going to send out a link to the replay. I think the good news is that Belma and I had a pretty solid stream, so the replay shouldn't have any freezing or anything like that. Again, this was our most popular webinar. And you guys, there were so many of you that joined live that I think that was partly why we had an issue. We're also doing more free webinars this week. So we have one on Friday about addressing job loss and what you can do. That's going to be with an employment lawyer. So make sure that if you have lost your job, to register for that. And then next week, we're having a Q&A with career coaches and recruiters. So those of you that I know there were a couple of questions about like applicant tracking systems and video interview tips, like definitely sign up for those. Those are all really amazing. Remember, all of our webinars are free right now. Belma is Work Bigger. I put a link to her company in there. And then also, Belma, you mentioned that you share open jobs on your Instagram, right?
Yeah, so all of our members, our community members, have been sharing with us like wherever they see opportunities. So if you're on Instagram, follow Work Bigger, and I've just been going on stories and sharing everything that our members have been posting.
Cool.
Yeah. So like that list came from our community essentially.
Amazing. So at Work Bigger on Instagram, I'm going to send you guys a link to Belma's workbook. We also have a post going up on the Career Contessa Instagram later today. That's a bunch of companies that are fully remote and hiring right now. So if you're not following us on Instagram, what are you waiting for? The other thing I want to talk about that we didn't really get to 100% is how to remain valuable and visible with your company. Yesterday, we released a podcast episode about how to work and manage effectively remotely. So give that a listen also. We'd really appreciate it. And two, there's some amazing tips on how you can remain visible if you are still employed and you're, maybe worried about stuff. And then lastly, tons of great resources on Career Contessa. Click on downloads and then click on courses. We've got an awesome course on job search strategy, resume, LinkedIn. We have one called Digital You, which is how to create that portfolio site. So like I said, now is a really good time to enroll in this online learning, whether it's free or some of the stuff is paid that you guys can, as Balma said, luck is what happens when, what is it? Preparation and
meets opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So,
Yeah.
so you got your prep work ahead of you. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. Belma, thank you so much for teaching us today and giving us some amazing tips, especially reminding us how we can really prioritize our mental and emotional health with those examples. I think that was awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to connect with everybody who downloaded the workbook. You also get a whole mindset training following that. So if that'd be helpful to you, just make sure you get that workbook and we'll get started on those resources ASAP.
Amazing.
And thank you, Lauren, for having me.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you on another